The morning sun poured over the wide Texas plains, spilling golden light across miles of untouched grass and wooden cabins that seemed to breathe in the dawn.
Smoke rose from chimneys, the smell of baking bread and burning pine mixing with the crisp wind.
Inside one of those small cabins, a woman named Emily Peterson wiped flour from her hands. Her face flushed from the heat of the oven and the weight of her own thoughts.
She had lived out here on the edge of nowhere for 3 years, baking bread for the settlers who passed through, feeding cowhands and wanderers, and pretending that the ache in her chest wasn't loneliness.
But that morning was different. That morning, a tall shadow filled her doorway. Alexander Reed, the biggest rancher for miles.
His hat was dusted with sunlight, his shirt rolled up to reveal arms sculpted by years of hard labor, and his boots carried the dust of 100 miles.
Emily froze, the dough still soft beneath her palms. She had heard of him, of course. Everyone had. He'd built his ranch from nothing, turning the barren land into a sea of cattle and wheat.
But the stories also said he was hard as iron, a man of few words and fewer smiles.
And now here he was, standing in her doorway, asking if she could cook for his ranch. "His cook has taken ill," he said, "and the men are starving." Emily's heart thudded painfully.
She wanted to say yes, to seize the chance to prove her worth beyond her appearance. But then she caught her reflection in the tin pot hanging by the window. Broad shoulders, round cheeks, arms that carried the indelible marks of years spent kneading dough and lifting pots. Shame rose like a nascent flame in her throat. "No one loves a fat girl, sir," she whispered, unable to meet his eyes.
Alexander didn't move for a moment. The sunlight stretched between them, catching in the air thick with flour.
Then he spoke softly, his voice carrying a depth that surprised her. "Miss Peterson," he said, "I'm not looking for love.
I'm looking for someone who knows what care tastes like." His words hung in the air long after he left.
And by noon, Emily found herself loading her few belongings into a cart and heading toward Reed Ranch. The ranch was bigger than she had imagined.
Dozens of men worked under the sun, their laughter echoing off the barns. But as she walked past, some of them smirked.
"She's the new cook," one whispered. "Looks like she could eat half the kitchen."
Their laughter burned through her like wildfire.
But she kept her head down and went straight to the kitchen. There she found her strength again. The moment she touched flour, she remembered who she was. Days turned into weeks. Emily cooked with her heart. Thick stews, golden loaves, and pies that made even the coldest cowhand smile. Slowly, the teasing faded. The men began to linger at the kitchen door, bringing her wildflowers or asking for seconds.
They said the ranch smelled like home now, but Alexander remained distant. He always thanked her politely after meals, his eyes unreadable.
Sometimes she caught him watching her as she kneaded bread or tended the fire, but he never said more than a few words. Then one afternoon, a storm rolled in from the vast plains of Nebraska. The sky turned gray, the wind howled, and the ranch hands scrambled to tie down the livestock. Emily was alone in the kitchen when she heard the barn doors slam open. Alexander stumbled in, soaked to the bone, carrying a calf in his arms.
Without thinking, she rushed to help him. Together, they got the fire going and tended to the shivering animal. When it was safe again, Alexander sat by the hearth, silent. "You shouldn't be out there alone," Emily said softly, wringing her apron.
Alexander looked up, his eyes tired but kind. "Neither should you," he said. "You work yourself to the bone for everyone else, but never let anyone care for you." She laughed bitterly. "There's nothing worth caring for, sir. I'm just the fat woman who bakes bread." Alexander stood then, towering over her. "No," he said quietly. "You're the woman who's fed every hungry soul that's crossed this land. You're the one who remembers who likes honey in their tea and who saved Thomas's dog with your stew when he was too sick to eat. Don't you dare call yourself just anything."
His words broke something open in her, a dam of self-loathing that had held back every compliment, every kindness she'd ever been given. For the first time in years, Emily cried.
Alexander stepped forward awkwardly at first and wiped a tear from her cheek with his calloused thumb. "You've got more heart than anyone I've ever met," he whispered.
From that day on, something changed between them. Alexander began spending more time in the kitchen, helping her carry water or stack firewood, finding reasons to linger.
Emily noticed the way his eyes softened when she laughed, how he'd sneak second helpings of her apple pie, even when he pretended he didn't like sweets.
The ranch grew warmer, not just from the fire, but from something unspoken building between 'em. Then one evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Alexander invited her to join him outside.
The sky was streaked with orange and rose, the cattle grazing lazily in the distance. He turned to her, his hat in his hands. "Emily," he said, "I don't care what folks say about how a woman should look."
"You've built more love in this kitchen than I've seen in my whole life. I reckon I'd like to spend my days with someone who knows what love tastes like."
Tears welled in her eyes again. "Alexander," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I'm not what people expect a rancher's wife to be." He smiled, stepping closer. "Good," he said. "I've never wanted what people expect." The Texas wind danced around them as he took her hand.
The same hands that had once kneaded bread now trembled in his. The same heart that once felt invisible now beating loud enough to drown out the world.
Behind them, the ranch lights flickered to life, a soft glow against the endless horizon. Months later, the ranch hands would laugh about how their boss married the cook. But every time someone teased, Alexander would grin and say, "Best decision I ever made. Can't run a ranch without love and good biscuits."
And Emily, once the woman who hid behind flour and fear, would smile quietly, her apron dusted with hope,